Hello, everyone. My name is Debbie Hegwanu, and I'm so delighted to have you with me, Fumi Alagbe, my co-host for today's show. You are welcome.
Thank you, Debbie, for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
And on Inspire today, we are pleased to have Bob Burg as a special guest for today, the very first guest on this show. And I'm sure it's going to be a very, very interesting moment with Bob. Bob is the co-author of the international bestseller, The Go-Giver, and his companion volumes, Go-Giver Sell More and The Go-Giver Leader. A former television personality and top producing salesperson, Bob speaks to corporation organizations and at sales and leadership conferences worldwide on topics at the core of the Go-Giver books. Bob has shared the platform with some of today's top business leaders, including a former US president. Bob was named by the American Management Association as one of the top 30 most influential thought leaders in business for 2014. Wow, that is amazing, Bob, right?
Well, it's certainly a nice feeling to be acknowledged in certain ways, but you also try to not take it too seriously because it's pretty much a judgment call by people when you get awarded those things. But it's always nice.
Yeah, awesome. So today we're going to be talking about the book, The Go-Giver. And sincerely, Bob, when I read the book, it wowed me. It changed my mindset, my perception, and I was like, I just have to talk to the author of this book. And that's why I had to give you a call and requested for a moment like this. So thank you so much for honoring the invitation.
My pleasure. Thank you.
On the title of the book, I'm wondering, what is the inspiration behind the title Go-Giver and not a go-getter? Everyone wants to be a go-getter. So what is the inspiration behind being a go-giver, the title of the book?
Yeah, it's a great question. And being a go-getter is a great thing. There was a book written many, many years ago by a gentleman by the name of Peter Kine called The Go-Getter. And it was a fantastic book because go-getters are people who are focused on, they take action. And that's very, very important. So the opposite of a go-giver isn't a go-getter. And let me explain why. We would say a go-getter and a go-giver work together. A go-giver is someone who understands that shifting your focus off of yourself onto others. In other words, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when I say giving in this context, I simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others. Understanding that doing so is not only a nice way, a pleasant way of conducting business and living life, it's also the most financially profitable way as well. Because when you think about it, when you're that person who can move from a focus on yourself, what we call an I focus or me focus, to an other focus, a focus on the other person, bringing value to their lives. People feel good about you. People want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be a part of your life. They want to give value to you. And of course, everyone wins. And we call people, again, with that sort of focus on others, we call them go-givers. Now, we would say that we would like people to be both go-getters, people of action, and go-givers, people whose focus is on bringing immense value to others. The opposite of a go-giver is a go-taker.
Oh,
and
okay.
That's the person who feels, they feel kind of, they feel entitled, if you will, to take, right? without giving value, without bringing value to the other person, to the party, to the situation.
Oh, great. Thanks, Bob, for that explanation. And
My
that takes me to the next question, which is still about the title. There seems to be a misconception about the title, a go-giver. It implies that you have to constantly give to others, right? So, and then you can be taken advantage of, kind of. So I'm like, where is the balance? When does a go-giver try to say, no, this is just enough? Where's the balance? Where do you strike the balance?
Well, first, sure, I think if someone hasn't read the book and they see the title, The Go-Giver, they might think, oh, it's just about giving yourself away or giving things away for
Absolutely.
free or not. No, first of all, a go-giver tends to make a very big profit because they're focused on the value they provide others, not the price. So a go-giver lets others focus on trying to be the lowest price. A go-giver focuses on being the highest value they can be, which often comes at a higher price and so forth. And so so they tend to have people who love doing business with them, because the people who are going to do business with a go-giver, they're looking for the ongoing value, the great experience, as opposed to just the cheap, price. And so that's the first part. But the second thing, and I think this is the real important part, is there's nothing about being a go-giver that should be confused with being anybody's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. No, being a go-giver simply means you understand that it's by moving your focus off of yourself and onto others that people are going to be much more likely to want to be in relationship with you, to want to do business with you, to want to tell others about you. Okay, so no, there's no natural congruency between being a go-giver and being taken advantage of. I always say to people, if you're finding yourself constantly being taken advantage of, now of course it's going to happen every so often in life because that's part of life, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're finding yourself in a pattern of being taken advantage of, it's because it's not because you're nice, it's not because you're giving, it's not because it's because you're doing things in such a way as to allow yourself to be taken advantage of. So don't do that. Figure out what is going on internally that's causing that to happen. Now, when you talk about saying no to people, sure, as a go-giver, you tend to be very successful, and people are always going to be asking you for things, and you want to help people whenever you can. But obviously, we only have 24 hours in a day, and again, we're not martyrs, and so you help when it's appropriate, and whoever you can, and however you can. But there's times you've got to say no. You've got to say no more than you can say yes, or you'd never be able to actually serve anyone. So the key is how you do it. Okay, so a go-giver is going to say no to someone in such a way that always values that other person, that always communicates respect, that makes the other person feel genuinely good about themselves. It's like when someone says, and I remember hearing people saying, and this became in vogue for a while, well, no is a complete sentence. And I know what they mean. What they mean, I think, is that, you don't have to be obligated to do anything. You can say no. But I don't think no is a complete sentence. I mean, if someone asks you to, let's say someone asks you to serve on a committee. Now, obviously, they're doing that because they feel you have value to add. It's a compliment, but you may not want to do it for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. If you don't want to, if it's not something that you feel is the best and highest use of your time or congruent with what you want to be doing, well, you're going to say no. But I wouldn't just say no. That's not a complete sentence. It's rude. It's impolite. The person's probably not ever going to come back to you again for anything else, and you may not want to close that door. But the biggest reason you're not going to say no like that is because it's incongruent with your value system, which is to treat people with kindness and respect. So now there's also people who say, well, you can say no maybe by telling a little fib, saying, well, I would, but I don't have time. Well, the problem with that is that we know it's not that we don't have time, we just don't want to do the thing itself. But what happens is when this person then, because they've heard that a lot and they know how to answer that, so when they persuasively show you why time will not be an issue, now you've either got to kind of fess up to the fact that you are lying, which you're not going to feel good about, and they're certainly not going to feel good about, or to save face, you've got to accept the engagement, which you don't want to do. So I don't think that's a good thing either. Here's how I suggest saying no in a go-giver type of way that is going to be, it's going to help everyone, okay? And it's simply this. Again, let's say you're asked to serve on a committee. You'd certainly say, thank you so much. While it's not something I'd like to do, please know how honored I am to be asked.
That's good.
Yeah, because what you've done, you've thanked them, you've honored them, you let them know it's not something personal, but you also didn't make an excuse. And this is
Yeah.
key.
Mm-hmm.
This is key. You didn't give them something to grab onto and overcome. You basically said, no, it's not something you choose to do, but you really are very grateful, just to be
That's
asked.
really good.
Yeah.
That's really good. It's like being polite, even when you're even saying no to
Sure,
them,
exactly.
thanking them, which
Yeah.
is really
Yeah, exactly.
awesome.
Interesting. And that would take me to the next question. You know what, Bob? When I read the book, I was expecting to see principles about how to make this amazing success. But the book is about a story. So is the story fictional or is it a true life story?
Well, it is a parable and it's a fictional story, but we put a lot of
Okay.
incidents in the book that happened to either John, my excellent co-author, or to myself. So there were a lot of stories from real life that we put into the book itself, but the book itself is totally a work of fiction.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. So now, in the book, you talked about the 5 laws of stratospheric success.
Mhm.
Want to talk about that and how it can be applied on a daily basis, not just as an entrepreneur, even as an individual, a student. How can it be applied?
Sure. Well, the laws themselves are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. And as you said, while it's a business book, so the laws we kind of show in a business setting, we also had a secondary story within there, Joe and Susan, a married couple, and kind of showed how these laws also apply to personal lives as well. Taking it from the business sense, when we look at the law of value, this says that your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, when you first hear this, it's sort of counterintuitive. Give more in value than I take in payment. Isn't that a recipe for bankruptcy? So we have to just understand the difference between price and value. Price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's finite, is what it is.
Yeah.
Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, that brings with it so much worth or value to someone that they will willingly pay for it, exchange their money for it, and be glad they did, while you make a healthy profit. In the story, we share about Iafrate's Italian Cafe, which is a high-end cafe. It's expensive, but when you go in there, you feel you're made to feel so special, from the way they open the door for you when you walk in, to the way everyone greets you, to the way you're seated, to the wait staff team that kind of knows exactly when to kind of be there for you, but otherwise to leave you alone to enjoy. There's the great ambiance, there's the food itself. Now, at the end, you're going to pay a good amount of money, but you come away from it feeling, wow, was that really worth it? You receive more value than what you paid for. Now, on the other hand, though, Ernesto, the owner, certainly the food, the running the building, all the expenses of his restaurant is a lot less than what he charges for the meal. So both people came away being better off than they were beforehand. And that's what we mean by the law of value. You're giving more in value than you take in payment, but you're still making a very healthy profit. So in a market-based, what we would call a free market-based exchange. When I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else. They do so on their own volition. In a free market-based exchange, there are always 2 profits: the buyer profits and the seller profits, because both of them come away better off afterwards than they were before. That's really the law of value at work. The law of compensation says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So law number 1 says to give more in value than you take in payment. Law number 2 tells us that the more people whose lives you touch with the exceptional value you provide, the more money with which you'll be rewarded, the more income you make. Now, Nicole Martin, who was the CEO, one of the mentors in the story, told Joe, explained to Joe, the protege, that law number one, the law of value, represents your potential income. But it's not enough to serve just one person, no matter how great the value is you provide.
Yeah.
Law number two is it represents your actual income, because that's the number of lives you impact with that value.
Mm-hmm.
Law number three is the law of influence. And this one says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Again, this sounds counterintuitive, but then you look at it, the greatest leaders you know, the top influencers, the most highly profitable salespeople. This is simply how they run their lives and they conduct their businesses. They're always looking for ways to place the other person's interest first. Now, again, let's go back to something we talked about earlier. That doesn't mean you're a martyr, right?
Yeah.
It means you understand a very basic rule that Joe, the protege, learned from several of the mentors, and that is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And hey, there's no faster, more powerful way to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely moving from that, right, that I focus, that me focus, to that other
people.
Making their win, making your win all about their win.
Wow.
And then there's two more. Law of authenticity says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. The mentor in that part, Deborah Davenport, shared a lesson she learned, that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are all very important, they're all for naught if you don't come at it from your true authentic core.
Yeah.
Right? When you show up as yourself, day after day, week after week, month after month, well, people feel good about you. They feel safe with you, right? They want to be in relationship with you. They want to introduce you to others. And so it's, we need to be able to really have the confidence in ourselves to show up as ourselves. And law number 5 is the law of receptivity. And this one says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. Too many people forget that part. But see, and this is, remember, if you recall Pindar and Joe at the end, he asked Joe to breathe out, but then just to keep breathing out and keep breathing out. Well, eventually Joe ran out of breath. Joe said, I can't just breathe out, I'm going to breathe in as well.
Yeah.
And Pindar said, well, Joe, what if I was to tell you it's been scientifically proven that breathing out is healthier than breathing in? And Joe just laughed, but that's silly. We breathe out and we breathe in, right? In the same way, we give, breathing out, and we receive, breathing in. It's not a matter of one or the other. And sometimes, the world around us gives us these very, very negative, destructive messages about money and prosperity and abundance. And you'd think, my goodness, that anybody who makes money did it on the backs of others, or did it by being crooked, or being, well, it's a big world. There's lots of, people out there. But you know what? When you're working, when you're an entrepreneur, a salesperson, when you're in business, and people aren't forced to buy from you, there's only one way to make a real lot of money, and that is to provide a lot of value to a lot of people. And so what we like to say is, it's not a matter of, are you a giver or a receiver? It's that you're a giver and a receiver. But here's what we know, and here's what's so important. The focus is on the giving, because that's how the nature works. That's how, you sow before you reap. I mean, that's just, you put logs in a newspaper and a light onto the fireplace before you get the heat. You don't go into a bank and say, hey, pay me some interest and then I'll open an account. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay. And so this is why we say that money is simply an echo of value. Money is an echo of value. It's the thunder, if you will, to value's lightning, which means nothing more than that the value must be the focus. The focus is on bringing value, giving value to the other person. That's the focus. The money you receive is simply a very natural result of the value you've provided.
Awesome. This is really, really, really good. You have really delved into or the 5 laws. And I think my next question is kind of similar. I think we have touched on this a little bit. It's just about giving more value. So I'm wondering, how do you determine what value is? I think you focus on it a little bit.
Well,
and when to give it.
yeah.
How do we determine what the value is and when to give those values?
Here's the interesting thing about value, because remember, we defined it as the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something to the end user. And here's what this really means. Value is always in the eyes of the beholder. In other words, it's not what we feel is valuable about what we do or what we give or our product or service or what have you. It's what the other person believes to be of value. And the only way we can ever understand what's on another person's mind is to ask questions and listen. It's interesting when we talk about sales, which is such an important life skill for anyone to learn. What is selling? Well, selling is really nothing more than discovering what the other person wants, needs, or desires, and helping them to get it. And again, we can only know through asking questions and then listening, because we all see the world from our own particular viewpoint, okay? We all operate out of a set of beliefs, a belief system. It's a belief system we were basically handed when we were no more than toddlers, right? And we kind of accept it and we live our lives through that. I call it an unconscious operating system. You know, we think we're operating out of conscious thought and free will, but half the time, most of the time, we're certainly simply operating within a premise that's already been established from us.
That's true.
Now, because of this, we see the world in a certain way, but we kind of think everybody else sees the world basically the same way, because how could it be any different? It's all we know. But it isn't true. Other people see the world different ways. Other people have different wants, different needs, different desires. So, you know, we might love to travel, but someone else hates to travel. And you think, wow, how could someone hate to travel? You know, well, how could someone love to travel, right? So we always have to do that. And that's really what value is. It's finding out what is worthwhile, what, you know, what is desirable to the other person. As far as not, you know, stopping giving it or knowing when not to, I mean, you know, again, there's nothing about a go-giver being a go-giver that says you should be, you know, anyone's doormat. So if you ever feel you're doing business with someone who's not a go-giver, that doesn't mean you can't do business with them, by the way. There's plenty of people who don't operate as we want to, you know, think they should. We can hopefully set a good example. But it does mean that while we're going to always be operating in a way that we want everyone to come away better off, if we know this other person doesn't have that in mind, we're going to be a little careful.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we give less. It doesn't mean we don't continue to try to bring exceptional value to the table, but we certainly don't purposely put ourselves in a position to be taken advantage of as well.
So value is not just all about me, it's about the other person.
Right.
And that would take me to the next question that talked about influence. As a go-giver, how can you create influence?
Yeah. So, you know, influence on just by definition, and this is a very surface answer right here, but then we'll go a little deeper. By definition, influence is simply, we can define influence really as the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal. That is influence by definition. But I don't think that's the essence of influence. The essence of influence is pull as opposed to push. As in, how far can you push a rope? And the answer is not very far, which is why great influencers don't push. They don't push their will on others. They don't push their ideas on each other. They're not pushy, right? You never hear people say, wow, that Joanne, she is so influential. She has a lot of push with people. No, she has a lot of pull with people. That's what influence is. It's pull. It's an attraction. Okay, great influencers attract people to themselves and only then to their ideas. So how does this pull manifest itself? Well, again, this comes back to understanding, and Dale Carnegie said this in his classic How to Win Friends and Influence People, where he wrote, ultimately, people do things for their reasons, not our reasons.
Wow.
So the genuine influencer who understands pull is always asking themselves questions to make sure they're focused in the right direction. How is what I'm asking this person to do, how does it align with their goals?
Yeah.
How does it align with their wants, needs, and desires? How does what I want this other person to do, how does it align with their values? How am I helping their life to become better? What problem for them am I helping to solve? And so when we ask ourselves these questions intelligently, thoughtfully, genuinely, authentically, not as a way to manipulate another person, another human being to do our will, but as a way of building everyone in the process, now we've come a lot closer to earning that person's commitment as opposed to trying to depend on some type of compliance or push.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Wow.
That's great. That's really profound. Thanks for sharing that.
My pleasure.
Next question is about the storyline about Joe and Finder. So he was lucky to have someone as a mentor. So the question is, what's the best way to find a mentor for people that are just upcoming, they're looking forward to have a mentor? So what's the most important thing you should not do when you're looking for a mentor?
Yeah, I think mentorship is very important, and finding a good mentor can really cut your learning curve considerably. And there's many ways you can find mentors. But I think, and you ask a good question about what not to do, because I think this is also just as important.
Yeah.
And that is, I wouldn't just approach someone who you don't know very well or at all and just say, hey, will you be my mentor? Or I need a mentor, will you be mine? And the reason is because, asking that way, it sort of comes across a little bit as entitled. It's like saying to somebody, hey, would you share 40 years of wisdom with me, even though you don't know me from a hole in the wall, right? And I think it can come across that way. Now, it doesn't mean that they'll never say yes, but it doesn't increase the odds, certainly. But here's what you can do that's a lot. See, a mentor-protege relationship is very much a relationship. It takes time to develop. It happens all the time. But you can certainly reach out to practically anyone, these days especially, and you can, approach it in a way such as, I'm just starting a business, or I'm just about to begin my career, and I'm wondering, I know you're very busy, and if this wouldn't be appropriate, or just even something you'd rather not do, that's totally fine. I'm wondering if I may ask you one or two very specific questions. Now, the way you frame that has set that up that you don't, there's no feeling like they owe you anything, that you feel very fortunate if they would do it. You're simply asking, and you're also letting them know that you've got one or two very specific questions. So you're implying correctly that you're not going to take up a lot of their time with nonsense. Okay. So, of course, you can really research this person, because you don't want to ask them something that you could have found out through, doing the research. But, when you're either on the phone with them or in person, or however you're, don't take up a whole lot of their time, get to the point and so forth. And then afterwards, thank them profusely. And then I'd send a personalized handwritten note to them that day. Again, thanking them for their valuable time, letting them know that you look forward to applying their wisdom right away, and that you'll let them know how things are going. And then what I would do, and this is just a nice touch, is to send a small donation. It doesn't have to be anything big, but at least a small donation to their favorite charity or cause. You can easily find this out by doing a search for them on the internet. And send a small check in their name. They'll be notified, and you're not doing it to kiss up or anything, but simply to communicate that you're looking to add value to them, that you really appreciate what they're doing, and then you're going to follow up in a few weeks, maybe let them know how things are going, maybe ask another question, and again, if over time this mentor-protege relationship is supposed to happen, it will. It might be just a couple of questions, or it might be a whole lot more, what have you. I wouldn't be too attached to having to have that person as an ongoing mentor, but when you approach it that way, there's a much better chance of it working out.
Awesome. That's really, really good. Thanks for sharing those wisdom. That's
Yeah.
really good. And you want to ask the next question?
Yes. You know what, Bob? When I was recently, I was talking to a friend about vision for the year 2020. You know what she said? She said, "This year 2020 is 2020 for me. 2020 for you is win. I win." So, what do you have to say about the win-win mentality? I win, you win. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, well, and we talk about that briefly in the book. And what Joe is advised is that too often people say win-win. Now, win-win's a great thing. We want everybody to win, of course. We want all parties, the tide raising all ships, of course. But too often people say win-win when what they mean is, I'm definitely going to win. I may have to do some things so that you feel like you're winning too, but really it's about me. And so when people do that, then it's not really as genuine. So we love the idea of win-win. We always just want people to make sure that when they say win-win, they really mean win-win.
Awesome.
Wow. Thank you so much, Bob, for your time. This is really getting so interesting, but we are running out of time. So we have to go now, but we really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for making all this time to answer some of the curiosity questions that we have about the book. And before we leave, do you want to talk about where those that are interested in the book Go Giver can get it? Do you want to talk about it, where they can get the book?
Yeah, sure. They can go to thegogiver.com and scroll down a few pages, and it will take them to where they can get a sample chapter excerpt of any of the books in the Go Giver series. Or they can go to Burg, BURG.com as well. Either of those sites have, all that information.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Bob, for your time. And we want to wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob.
And the same to both of you. Thank you so much for having me with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Okay. So before we come to your way next time, we want to say thank you so much, our wonderful viewers. If you love this video, please give it a thumbs up, and we would like your comments in our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, viewers. Bye.